Welcome to Can't Hurt Me, Master Your Mind and Defy the Odds. I'm here to guide you through the journey that's going to push you far beyond what you think is possible. In this audiobook, I'll share with you the brutal truths of my own life, the pain, the failures, and the relentless drive that got me out of the darkest places. But this isn't just about my story. It's about what you can do to break free from your own limitations. We all have limits, mental, emotional, and physical, holding us back. We've been conditioned by society, by the people around us, and even by our own minds to stay comfortable, to stay safe. But here's the thing. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. Growth happens when you push yourself, when you break through your fears, and when you embrace discomfort as your greatest teacher. In this audiobook, I'm going to walk you through the mindset that helped me overcome the odds, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'll challenge you to confront the excuses you've been telling yourself, the stories that keep you stuck in mediocrity. I'll push you to tap into a part of yourself that you didn't even know existed, the part that's capable of so much more than you're giving yourself credit for. Chapter 1, I should have been a statistic. When I look back on my childhood, the odds were stacked against me. I wasn't supposed to make it out. Growing up in a house filled with violence, poverty, and pain, my life could have easily taken a very different direction. Statistically, I should have ended up broken, lost, maybe even dead. But that's not what happened. I remember being a small boy, terrified of my own father. My dad was a hard man, abusive, and took out all his anger on us. Every day was survival, not just physically, but mentally. My mom did her best to protect us, but she was trapped too. The fear, the confusion, it was all consuming. But somewhere deep down inside, I knew I had to keep pushing, to keep going. I didn't have the words for it then, but what I was starting to develop was a mindset of survival. You see, I wasn't born tough. I wasn't born special. There was nothing about me that said I'd be able to overcome any of this. I was just another kid from a broken home. I failed in school. I was insecure, afraid, and used food and television to escape the reality of my life. But those early years shaped me. They taught me that the mind can be your greatest weapon, or it can be your greatest enemy. And back then, my mind was my enemy. It told me I was worthless. It told me I'd never amount to anything. It made me believe the world's judgment of me, that I was nothing. I believed it for a long time, but something inside me wouldn't let go. There was this small part of me, buried under all the pain and self-doubt, that kept whispering, "You can do more." It wasn't loud, but it was there, and it was that voice, that tiny spark, that would eventually save me. The journey ahead wasn't going to be easy. I had a long way to go to become the man I am today. But that's the thing about life. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters where you're going. I should have been a statistic, but I wasn't. I refused to let my past define me. I realized then that the only way out was through. Through the pain, through the fear, through the doubt. I knew I had to start mastering my mind, because if I didn't, it was going to kill me. That's the message I want to give you. It doesn't matter how low you start. It doesn't matter how bad things look. You can still climb out of it. You can still fight back, but it starts with you. It starts with mastering your mind. You have to be willing to face your demons head on, to confront the reality of your life and say, "No, I'm not going to let this break me." And that's exactly what I did. This is just the beginning of my story, but let me tell you, it's never too late to rewrite yours. Chapter 2, The Accountability Mirror. Growing up, I didn't have anyone pushing me, no one telling me to set goals or even holding me accountable. I was stuck in my own world of excuses, blaming my situation, my past, and everyone around me for why I wasn't getting anywhere. I was drifting through life without any real direction or purpose. One day I looked in the mirror and saw a guy I didn't even recognize anymore. Overweight, depressed, full of self-doubt, and something inside me snapped. I realized that no one was going to come and save me. No one was going to tell me how to fix my life or give me the answers. If I wanted to change, it had to start with me, right there in that moment. That's when I came up with what I now call the accountability mirror. I started writing down all my goals on Post-it notes and sticking them around the mirror in my bathroom. Simple things at first, like lose 10 pounds or study harder. But I didn't stop there. I also wrote down my failures, my insecurities, the lies I'd been telling myself for years. Things like, you're fat, you're dumb, you're lazy. I had to be brutally honest with myself because pretending things were fine wasn't going to get me anywhere. Looking into that mirror every day became a ritual. I wasn't just seeing my reflection anymore. I was facing my truth. It forced me to confront who I really was and what I needed to change. I couldn't hide from it. And that's the first lesson. You've got to be real with yourself. If you're lying to yourself about where you're at in life, you'll never be able to take the steps you need to improve. At first, those post-its felt like accusations, reminders of how much I'd screwed up. But after a while, something started to shift. Those notes became my roadmap. Every time I accomplished a goal, I took one down. When I failed, I didn't remove it. Instead, I figured out what went wrong and put up a new goal to push myself further. The accountability mirror became my tool for growth. I started setting bigger and bigger goals. And you know what? I began to see progress, not just physically but mentally. I was building confidence, learning how to push through the hard times instead of making excuses. The mirror doesn't lie. It's a reflection of your reality. And facing that reality is the only way to create real lasting change. It's uncomfortable, it's raw, but that's where growth happens. You've got to be willing to call yourself out. Stop waiting for someone else to push you. That person in the mirror is the only one who can hold you accountable. Once you get real with yourself, you'll see that the path to becoming better starts right there, in your own reflection. If you want to change your life, you've got to be willing to hold yourself to a higher standard every single day. Chapter 3. The Impossible Task. There are moments in life when it feels like you're facing something so big, so difficult, that it's impossible to overcome. I know that feeling all too well. I've been there, standing on the edge of quitting, convinced there was no way I could go on. But what I've learned is that it's precisely in those moments, when you feel like you can't take another step, that you're on the verge of breaking through. For me, it was Navy SEAL training, specifically Hell Week. 5.5 days of non-stop physical and mental punishment designed to break you down completely. You're cold, wet, and exhausted, running on maybe a couple of hours of sleep for the entire week. It's meant to push you to your absolute limit, and then beyond that. Most people don't make it. Most quit. I almost quit too. There was one point during Hell Week when I was so broken, I didn't think I could keep going. My body hurt in ways I didn't know were possible. My mind was telling me over and over again that I was done, that I had no more to give. But something clicked in that moment. I realized that I wasn't physically done. Yes, I was in pain. Yes, I was exhausted. But the real battle wasn't happening in my muscles or bones. It was happening in my mind. And that's when I made the decision. I wasn't going to let my mind break me. I wasn't going to listen to the voice that kept saying I couldn't go on. Instead, I focused on the only thing I could control. Taking the next step. That's the key to overcoming what feels impossible. Taking it one small step at a time. It's easy to get overwhelmed when you look at the big picture, when you see how far you still have to go. But if you break it down into manageable parts, if you focus on just getting through the next minute, the next rep, the next hour, you can keep going. You'd be amazed at what you're capable of if you stop worrying about the end and just keep moving forward. One small step at a time. That's what I did. Instead of thinking about how much longer Hell Week was going to last, I focused on getting to the next meal. Just get to breakfast, then lunch, then dinner. And before I knew it, I had made it through another day. It wasn't easy. My mind fought me the entire time, trying to convince me that I couldn't go on. But I ignored it. I kept pushing, kept taking that next step, no matter how small it was. And when it was all over, I had done it. I had survived something that felt impossible. This chapter isn't just about Hell Week, though. It's about any challenge in life that feels too big to handle. Whether it's losing weight, getting out of debt, or achieving a big career goal, it all comes down to how you approach it. If you let the size of the task overwhelm you, you'll never start. But if you break it down, focus on one step at a time, you'll find that you can accomplish things you never thought possible. The impossible task isn't impossible. It's just a series of small, difficult steps. And as long as you keep moving forward, step by step, you'll make it through. So the next time you feel like giving up, remember this. You're not done yet. You've still got more in the tank. Just take that next step. Chapter 4. Taking Souls. In this chapter, I want to talk about something that changed the game for me. Taking souls. It's not what it sounds like, though. I'm not talking about literally taking something from someone. This is about how you handle adversity, how you respond when you're up against people or situations that seem unbeatable, and how you flip the script. It's about going beyond what's expected, breaking through limitations, and turning the tables. Let me tell you about a time when I was in Navy SEAL training. SEAL training is designed to break you. It's hell on earth. They put you through endless physical and mental challenges, testing everything you've got, just waiting for you to quit. But one week in particular, Hell Week, is the worst of all. Sleep deprivation, freezing water, sand everywhere, constant physical demands. Every minute is an opportunity to give up. One of the key figures during Hell Week is the instructor. They're there to make your life hell, plain and simple. But while they were there to break me, I was there to take their souls. Here's what I mean. While everyone else was dragging, feeling sorry for themselves, I looked for opportunities to show the instructors that I wasn't breaking. When they were counting on us to be broken, I smiled at them. I thrived in the pain. I wanted to show them that no matter what they threw at me, I wasn't going anywhere. That's the essence of taking souls. It's about pushing so far past what's expected, so far beyond the pain and exhaustion, that you break your opponent's will. You flip the situation by taking control, even when it feels like you've got none. You do what no one expects you to do. It's not just about physical challenges. This applies to every situation in life. Whether it's at work, at home, or in relationships, there are always people and circumstances that will try to break you down, to test you, to push you past your limits. In those moments, you've got two options. You can give in and let them break you, or you can decide to take their soul. You show up stronger than they expect, work harder than they thought you could, and push through in ways that they never saw coming. It's a mindset shift. When you're in a tough spot, instead of feeling like a victim or waiting for it to end, you ask yourself, how can I use this? How can I flip this into my advantage? The moment you stop feeling sorry for yourself and start seeing adversity as an opportunity is the moment you become unstoppable. One of my favorite examples of taking souls comes from working with a crew of Navy SEAL candidates who were struggling. They were cold, miserable, and starting to mentally break down. I saw it happening, and instead of letting them give up, I stepped up. I set the pace. I led from the front. I smiled through the pain, pushed harder than anyone else, and before long, I saw a shift. The rest of the team started feeding off that energy. The instructors noticed it too. They saw that their attempts to break us weren't working, and that's when I knew I had them. I took their soul. This mindset doesn't just apply in the military. I carried it into every challenge I faced in life. When I was training for ultra races, working towards breaking records, or even when I was in jobs I hated, I always asked myself, how can I take their soul in this situation? How can I push through in a way that no one expects? When you adopt this mentality, you stop being a victim of your circumstances. You stop waiting for things to get easier. Instead, you take control. You look for ways to thrive, even in the hardest conditions. And when you do that, not only do you grow stronger, but you start to break the will of those who try to stand in your way. So, how do you do it? It starts with perspective. When you're up against something hard, embrace it, smile in the face of it, show the world that nothing can break you. Whether you're dealing with a difficult boss, an intense workout, or just life beating you down, flip it. Take their soul by showing them that nothing, and I mean nothing, will make you quit. You thrive on the challenge. You welcome the pain. And when you do that, you'll watch as your enemies, your competition, and even your doubts start to fade away. That's how you take souls. It's not about revenge. It's not about aggression. It's about owning every moment and every challenge and never letting anything or anyone take your power away. Are you ready to take some souls? Chapter 5. Armored Mind. The truth is, life is going to beat you down. It's going to test you in ways you never imagined. And the only way to survive, to come out on the other side stronger, is to develop an armored mind. I learned this the hard way. Growing up, I was beaten down by the world, mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically. I was surrounded by negativity, constantly told what I couldn't do, what I would never be. And for a long time, I let it get to me. I let the world define who I was. But at some point, I had enough. I realized that if I didn't change my mindset, I would stay trapped in the same cycle of failure and self-doubt. So I made a decision to build a mental armor, an unbreakable mindset that would carry me through anything life threw my way. It didn't happen overnight. It's something I had to work on every day, and I'm still working on it now. But here's the key. The mind is like any other muscle. It needs to be trained, it needs to be tested, and it needs to be pushed beyond its limits. If you don't test your mind, it will stay weak, fragile, and easy to break. The first step in building this armored mind is to get comfortable with discomfort. Most people shy away from discomfort. They want life to be easy. They want to avoid pain. But the problem with that mindset is that life isn't easy. And if you're not used to discomfort, when it inevitably hits, it'll knock you down hard. So I started putting myself in uncomfortable situations on purpose. I sought out challenges that scared me, that pushed me beyond what I thought I could handle. Whether it was running on broken feet during ultramarathons, enduring brutal Navy SEAL training, or pushing my body and mind to their absolute limits, I forced myself to face discomfort head-on. Each time I did this, I got stronger. My mind became more resilient, more capable of handling stress, pain, and adversity. And the more I trained my mind, the more armored it became. Another crucial part of building an armored mind is developing what I call the callous mind. Just like your hands form calluses after repeated exposure to friction, your mind can be calloused through repeated exposure to hardship. Every time you push through something hard, every time you don't quit when you want to, you're adding another layer of mental toughness. But it's not just about enduring pain and discomfort. It's about being honest with yourself. A lot of people go through life lying to themselves, making excuses for why they aren't where they want to be. They blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck. But here's the thing. Nobody is going to save you. If you want to get better, if you want to be strong, you have to take full responsibility for your life. That's what separates the weak from the strong. When you stop making excuses, when you face the brutal truth about where you are and what's holding you back, you can start to make real progress. That's part of building your mental armor, being brutally honest with yourself, taking accountability, and then taking action to change your situation. I'm not saying it's easy. Developing an armored mind takes time, effort, and a lot of pain. But I can tell you this, it's worth it. Because once you have that mental armor, once you've calloused your mind, you become unstoppable. Nothing the world throws at you can break you. You'll still face challenges, setbacks, and pain, but they won't stop you. You'll keep moving forward no matter what. So if you're feeling beaten down, if life has you on your knees, know this. You have the power to build an armored mind. You can choose to face discomfort, to callous your mind, and to take control of your life. It won't happen overnight, but with enough time, enough effort, you'll become unbreakable. And when that happens, nothing will stand in your way. Chapter 6, it's not about a trophy. We live in a world obsessed with rewards, recognition, and winning. From a young age, we're told that the goal is to be the best, to come first, to collect the trophies. But what I've learned is that it's not about the trophy at all. It's about the journey, the grind, the work that goes into becoming the best version of yourself. I used to chase trophies too. In high school, I was obsessed with becoming a basketball player, not because I loved the game, but because I wanted to be seen as the best. I thought that once I had the trophy, I'd be complete, like the external validation would make me whole. But it didn't work that way. When I didn't achieve what I set out to, I felt empty, like a failure. I wasn't chasing the right thing. What I didn't realize back then, and what took me years to understand, is that true fulfillment doesn't come from the trophy or the applause. It comes from the process, from pushing yourself beyond what you thought was possible, from grinding day in and day out, from embracing the struggle and finding joy in the effort. When I look back on my life, The moments that stand out aren't the times I crossed the finish line first or got a medal hung around my neck. The moments that really shaped me are the times I was in the trenches, pushing myself to the brink, doubting whether I had what it took, but choosing to keep going anyway. Those are the moments where I grew, where I found out what I was made of. And here's the thing, if you're only chasing the trophy, you're never going to be satisfied. There will always be someone faster, stronger, smarter. There will always be another level, another challenge, another thing to achieve. And if you're tying your sense of self-worth to those external markers, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. What I'm telling you is this: stop worrying about the trophy. Focus on the work. Focus on the grind. Every day, wake up with the mindset that you're going to give everything you've got. Not for the applause, not for the accolades, but because that's who you are. That's what defines you. The willingness to show up, to put in the hours, to push through the pain even when nobody's watching. That's where the real victory lies. I've done some extreme things in my life, things that most people wouldn't even think about attempting. But none of those things were about getting a trophy. They were about testing myself, about seeing how far I could go, how much I could endure, how hard I could push. The reward wasn't the medal at the end. It was the knowledge that I gave everything I had, that I pushed myself beyond my limits. So ask yourself this: are you doing what you're doing because you love it, because it drives you? Or are you chasing the validation, the praise, the recognition? If it's the latter, you need to reframe your mindset. Because I promise you, that stuff won't make you happy. It won't fulfill you. But if you learn to love the grind, if you find satisfaction in the process, in the day-to-day work, you'll be unbeatable. And here's the beauty of it. When you stop chasing the trophy, when you stop worrying about what other people think, that's when you truly start to win. Not because of some external validation, but because you're living on your terms. You're doing the work for you, because you know it's making you stronger, better, tougher. So forget about the trophy. Focus on the grind. Embrace the struggle. Because in the end, that's what it's all about. Not the finish line, not the applause, but the journey. That's where the real victory lies. Chapter 7. The most powerful weapon. When I started to understand the power of the mind, everything changed for me. I realized that my biggest limitations weren't physical. They weren't about my circumstances, my upbringing, or even my abilities. They were mental. The greatest obstacles I faced were the ones I placed on myself. The doubts, the fear, the excuses, they were all in my head. And once I understood that, I knew I had the power to break through any barrier. But it wasn't easy. Mastering your mind takes time, effort, and an unwavering commitment to pushing past your own limits. I want to talk to you about the most powerful weapon you have. Your mind. No matter what you're up against, no matter how tough life gets, no matter how high the mountain seems, your mind can be your greatest ally or your worst enemy. And the crazy part is, it's completely up to you. Back when I was overweight and completely out of shape, I had no idea that my mind was the key. I thought my body was holding me back. I thought I didn't have the genetics or the natural ability to do great things. But I was wrong. The truth is, I hadn't trained my mind to fight. I was letting my thoughts control me instead of taking control of my thoughts. It wasn't until I decided to take ownership of my mind that things started to change. I began pushing myself in ways that I never had before. I stopped making excuses. I stopped looking for the easy way out. I started training my mind to endure pain, to accept discomfort, to lean into the challenges instead of running away from them. Here's the thing. Your mind is like a muscle. It needs to be trained. It needs to be conditioned to handle stress, to overcome obstacles, to push through pain. If you let it, your mind will always choose the path of least resistance. It will tell you to quit, to take the easy way out, to settle for mediocrity. But if you train it, if you discipline it, your mind can become the most powerful tool you have. I've pushed myself to the absolute limit, both physically and mentally. I've been in situations where every fiber of my being wanted to quit, but I didn't. Why? Because I trained my mind to keep going. I trained myself to override the signals of pain and fatigue, to push past the point where most people would give up. I'm not telling you this to sound tough. I'm telling you this because you can do it too. Your mind is capable of far more than you think, but you've got to be willing to push yourself. You've got to be willing to get uncomfortable. You've got to be willing to do the work. It's not easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. But once you start mastering your mind, you'll realize that the only thing holding you back is you. The limits you think are real. They're not. They're mental. And you have the power to break through them. Start by setting small goals for yourself. Push yourself a little bit further each day. When your mind tells you to stop, to quit, to take the easy way out, don't listen. Push past it. Show yourself that you're stronger than your doubts, stronger than your fears. Over time, you'll start to see that you're capable of so much more than you ever imagined. You'll realize that the limitations you thought were holding you back were just in your head. And once you break through those mental barriers, there's nothing you can't do. So, train your mind. Treat it like a muscle. Push it, challenge it, strengthen it. Because in the end, your mind is your greatest weapon. It's the key to unlocking your full potential. And once you learn to master it, there's nothing that can stop you. Chapter 8. Talent Not Required. We all have that voice in our head telling us we're not good enough, that we don't have the talent, that we don't have what it takes. I've heard that voice my entire life. When I was a kid, I had every excuse to give up. I was in a bad environment, living with a father who abused me, moving from one bad situation to another. I didn't feel special, I didn't feel smart, and I sure as hell didn't feel like I had any talent. But here's the truth. Talent isn't necessary. You don't need to be born with it to achieve greatness. Talent can be developed. Hard work, persistence, and sheer willpower can take you much further than talent ever will. In fact, talent can sometimes be a curse. If you're naturally good at something, it's easy to get comfortable, to stop pushing yourself. But if you have to fight for every inch of progress, if you have to hustle and grind to get better, you build a different kind of strength. You build resilience. I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the strongest, and I definitely wasn't the smartest. But I worked harder than anyone else. I knew that if I showed up, day after day, putting in the work, even when I didn't feel like it, I would get better. I wasn't born with any special gifts, but I wasn't going to let that stop me from becoming the best version of myself. That's what this chapter is about. Killing the myth that talent is required for success. You don't need to be the most talented person in the room. You just need to be the hardest worker. The one who shows up early and stays late. The one who pushes through fatigue and pain, who doesn't give up when things get tough. When I decided to become a Navy SEAL, I wasn't the ideal candidate. I wasn't in great shape, I wasn't a natural swimmer, and I didn't have any military experience. But I refused to let any of that hold me back. I focused on what I could control, my effort, my attitude, and my willingness to endure discomfort. You have to make a decision. Are you going to let your perceived lack of talent hold you back? Or are you going to outwork everyone around you? That's what separates successful people from the rest. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's their work ethic. It's their ability to keep going when most people would quit. When I went through BUD/ES training, I wasn't the best at anything. But I was relentless. I kept going, even when my body was telling me to stop. I wasn't the fastest runner, but I refused to quit. I wasn't the strongest swimmer, but I pushed myself through the water. I wasn't the most talented candidate, but I worked harder than anyone else. That's the mindset you need to develop. Stop worrying about whether you have talent. Stop telling yourself you're not good enough. Focus on your effort. Focus on your discipline. Focus on showing up every single day and giving it everything you've got. And here's the thing. When you put in the work, when you grind day after day, something amazing happens. You start to get better. You start to improve. You might not see it right away, but slowly, over time, you start to transform. You start to become the person you want to be. That's how you win. Not by being born with some magical talent, but by working harder than everyone else. By refusing to give up. By showing up even when you don't feel like it. By grinding through the discomfort. Remember, talent is overrated. Hard work, consistency, and perseverance, that's what matters. It's not about where you start, it's about how far you're willing to go. So, stop comparing yourself to others. Stop worrying about whether you're talented enough. Focus on what you can control: your work ethic, your effort, and your attitude. That's what's going to take you to the next level. You don't need talent to be great. You just need to be relentless. Chapter 9. The uncommon amongst uncommon. In life, most people settle into the comfort of the average. Even those who push themselves often stop once they've reached what they think is good enough. But if you're aiming for something more, if you want to stand out, you need to go beyond being just uncommon. You need to be the uncommon amongst the uncommon. When I first started pushing myself, I didn't know what this meant. I just knew I wasn't satisfied with where I was. After every goal I achieved, I realized that there was still another level. That realization kept me hungry. It's easy to look around and feel accomplished when you're better than most people in the room. But the moment you get comfortable, you lose. Becoming uncommon means going past the limits most people set for themselves. But here's the thing. Once you become uncommon, you're still not done. You have to ask yourself, am I the best, even amongst those who are already at a high level? The truth is, most people will stop once they reach what they think is success. But not you. I learned this in SEAL training. You see, in a group of elite individuals, it's tempting to coast once you've proven you're tough enough. But that's when I realized being tough wasn't enough. Being a Navy SEAL wasn't enough. I wanted to be the best of the best. I wanted to be the guy who never let his guard down, who never stopped improving, even when everyone else thought they had arrived. Being uncommon amongst uncommon people means you keep raising the bar. When others are resting on their laurels, you're still grinding. When others are satisfied with their achievements, you're still pushing for more. It's not about competing with others. It's about competing with yourself, about knowing there's always another level you can reach. The hardest part of this journey isn't just reaching a level of uncommon achievement. It's staying there. The uncommon among the uncommon understand that you can't ever relax. Success, no matter how big or small, is a moment in time. It's fleeting. You have to stay sharp, stay hungry, and keep working, even when it feels like you've already won. Especially then. This mindset applies to everything. It doesn't matter if you're in the military, an athlete, a business person, or a student. It's about never letting yourself get comfortable. When I was in BDS, I trained like I had nothing to lose, even after I'd made it through some of the hardest parts. When I became a SEAL, I trained like I was still the guy trying to prove he belonged there. I wasn't content with just being part of the team. I wanted to lead. I wanted to be the one everyone looked to when things got tough. And guess what? That mindset doesn't stop once you've made it. It continues. Once you've climbed one mountain, you look for the next one. There's always more to learn, always more ways to improve. That's the real challenge, to keep pushing when there's no immediate reward in sight, to keep moving forward even when the rest of the world is telling you that you've already done enough. It's a lonely road. Not everyone will understand it, but that's what it takes to be uncommon amongst uncommon people. You have to be willing to walk the path that others won't. You have to embrace the discomfort, the grind, the never-ending pursuit of excellence. Because that's where greatness is found. In the moments when no one's watching, when no one's cheering you on, when you're working purely for the sake of becoming better than you were yesterday. So ask yourself, what do you want? Do you want to be good enough? Or do you want to be uncommon? And once you've become uncommon, are you ready to push even further? Are you ready to become the best version of yourself? Not for the applause, not for the recognition, but because you know that's what you're capable of. Being uncommon amongst uncommon people isn't about being better than others. It's about never settling for anything less than your own potential. It's about knowing that you can always push harder, always go further. It's about becoming the kind of person who inspires others to do the same. And here's the truth. Once you get there, once you become uncommon amongst uncommon people, you'll realize something important. It's not about the end goal. It's about the process. It's about the journey. Because that's where true growth happens. So keep grinding, keep pushing, keep moving forward. You're not done yet. There's always another level to reach. Be uncommon amongst the uncommon. And then keep going. Chapter 10. The Empowerment of Accountability. Accountability isn't a word we usually get excited about. For most people, it feels like a burden, something that holds you back, an extra responsibility when you're already carrying so much. But in reality, accountability is power. It's the key to unlocking your potential and staying true to the path you've chosen. Let me tell you, when you start holding yourself accountable for everything in your life, that's when things begin to change. At first, it feels tough because you can't blame anyone else. You can't say, it's my circumstances, or it's because of that person. When you embrace accountability, you take ownership of your life. Every success, every failure, it's all on you. This is what I learned the hard way. There was a time in my life when I blamed everyone else for my situation. I blamed my environment, my upbringing, my bad luck. But as long as I was pointing fingers, I wasn't moving forward. I was stuck. It wasn't until I started owning everything, my decisions, my mistakes, my lack of effort, that I finally started making progress. That's when I realized that taking responsibility for your life is one of the most empowering things you can do. When you take full responsibility, you're no longer a victim. You're the driver. You control what happens next. That doesn't mean bad things won't happen. Life will still throw challenges your way, but now, instead of seeing them as obstacles that stop you, you see them as problems to solve. You ask yourself, what can I do to get through this? Or how can I get better from this? One of the toughest lessons I learned was that there's no room for excuses if you really want to grow. No one cares about the reasons why you didn't make it or why you gave up. The only thing that matters is what you do next. I could have stayed stuck in my past, in my excuses. But once I let go of all that, I started to realize how much power I really had. I could choose how hard I worked. I could choose whether I gave up or kept going. The best part about taking full accountability is that it doesn't rely on anyone else. You don't have to wait for someone to give you permission. You don't have to wait for the right time or the right circumstances. You start wherever you are, with whatever you have, and you do what you can with it. No matter what's going on around you, you can always control your effort, your attitude, and your decisions. And once you start doing that, the results will follow. There's another side to accountability too. It's not just about calling yourself out when you're not doing enough. It's about celebrating the wins you create for yourself. When you know that everything you've achieved came from your own hard work, your own decisions, and your own drive, the victory is even sweeter. No one can take that from you. But here's the thing. Accountability doesn't mean perfection. It's not about getting everything right all the time. It's about recognizing when you've fallen short, owning it, and doing something about it. We all make mistakes. We all mess up. The difference between those who grow and those who don't is how they respond. Do you make excuses and justify why you failed? Or do you take a hard look at what happened, learn from it, and get back to work? For me, the turning point was when I stopped looking for reasons outside of myself and started looking in the mirror. That's when things got real. That's when I started making real progress, not just in my career, but in my relationships, my health, and my mental toughness. Everything started to fall into place when I accepted that no one else was going to save me. It was all on me. So, what does accountability look like in practice? It's simple. It's about setting clear goals for yourself and following through, no matter what. It's about tracking your progress honestly and adjusting when you need to. It's about checking in with yourself daily and asking, am I doing what I need to do to get where I want to go? And if the answer is no, you don't get defensive. You don't get discouraged. You get to work. One thing I've learned is that accountability is a mindset. It's a choice you make every day. You can choose to blame others or your circumstances, or you can choose to own your life and everything in it. It's not easy, but it's worth it. When you hold yourself accountable, you're not just improving yourself. You're preparing yourself for whatever comes next. You're building resilience, discipline, and trust in your own abilities. When you make accountability a habit, you start seeing opportunities instead of obstacles. You start believing that you can handle whatever comes your way because you've trained yourself to respond with action, not excuses. And that's when you become unstoppable. So here's the challenge. Take full ownership of your life. Don't wait for someone else to fix things for you. Don't wait for the perfect conditions to start. Begin now, wherever you are, with whatever you have. Hold yourself accountable to your goals, to your standards, and to your potential. Because the only person who can get you where you want to go is you. And once you embrace that truth, nothing can stop you.